Hello, and welcome back to the EU Salt Mine. I am your host, Brian. It is France versus France today, as both players enter from the only country represented more than once in this mine. Before the series, let me say thank you to our sponsor, Manscaped. They contributed half the prize pool, the other half was given very generously and very anonymously. Alpha54 won his first match in the mine, but has since lost 2 in a row. All Game 5 Series 2. He won't want either of those streaks to continue today. Similarly, Fairy has had 2 losses since his initial victory in the salt mine. So no matter what happens today, someone breaks a losing streak and the other's streak reaches 3. But who will each one be? Let's go check.
France, the only nation with 2 players representing it in the EU salt mine. Now, they go head to head, and it's a matchup that we have seen before many times, and it always goes in favor of this guy, Fairy, who's doing well in defense early on. And Alpha might be the favorite today. Fairy Peak has looked relatively sluggish in some of his recent games. And Fairy fans will be delighted to see that he's gone back to the Fennec instead of whatever he was doing in this matchup against Ixo. But Alpha, consistent with the double touch as always, opens his scoring inside 30 seconds. He is trying to stay at the top of the table here, the top half, and Fairy's trying to get into the top half. Nice demo, and that is an equalizer for Fairy on his first real chance of the game. So far, he does look a bit more organized, a bit more tidy than he did the other day against Ixo. Now, Alpha is going to beat Fairy today. He'll have to look out for one thing in particular, and that is a change of playstyle mid-series, because he's done well in some series against Fairy in the past, but not for the entire series. He'll do well for half of it, and then Fairy will switch something up, and then suddenly it's all going Fairy's way. So either Alpha can try to find a playstyle that counters everything Fairy can do, or he needs to be ready for when that happens and answer with a switch up of his own. Fairy Peak just walks into the danger zone, comes away with the ball, but misses the open net. And Alpha should have the ball here. No, Fairy just sneaks in for the aerial shot. Alpha's there to guide it wide, but that was very risky for Alpha to leave that one for Fairy. His shooting is absolutely world class. His mentality still, I think, the best in the world for 1v1. Almost impossible to tilt this guy, and he's made a nice save here off the near post. Some good defensive plays already in game 1 for Fairy. Alpha trying to salvage this air dribble. It hasn't taken off in the right direction, and now Fairy Peak, with a strong challenge, has another open net. He's not going to miss this time. 3-1. Fairy looks ready and certainly prepared to take on one of his biggest rivals at the moment, his countryman and himself are good friends. Play 2v2 together regularly. They play against each other in 3v3 very regularly. Fairy's just trying to add another win against Alpha to his history in this matchup. I don't think he's ever lost a series against Alpha54. Started off brilliantly in game 1. Nice touch to the back corner by Fairy. Ball does bounce off the wall though, so he can't rush the counter-attack. I don't think he wants to rush the counter-attack. He's quite happy to slow play this one. Look at that, an air double from Fairy. Not something we're used to seeing every day, but these things are becoming more and more a part of his game recently. Alpha, of course, has had that in his game for a long time, and he's put the practice in, and he shows Fairy how it's done. Certainly, I think the better of the air dribble go to Alpha in this matchup. Fairy's way off to the side of the ball here. That could be another goal for Alpha. And that's a very nice finish, in fact, as he chips it into the top shelf in front of a flailing Fairy Peak. Very cheeky by Alpha54. Fairy was there, pre-jumping at the near post. He didn't get in the way of the ball. Now, 3-goal lead, cut down to just 1 goal, and Alpha, next up on the play, dodge runs out of time. Fairy Peak doesn't miss many of these counter-attacks. Let's see what he can do from range. He still has his dodge, actually, but it's fired straight down and low into Alpha, and there's no bump. It's not an effective one by Fairy, but I'll tell you what, it was somewhat effective, although it didn't take Alpha completely out of the game. It forced him to make a touch that was too heavy for him to catch up with, and Fairy for now is hanging on. That's not the best hit on the ball by Alpha. He's given away a lot of pressure with that touch. Still a good chance to score though, and he's caught Fairy off his line. That power shot sneaks through. Alpha ties us up here. That's really good awareness. Great vision for Alpha, because Fairy was faking a challenge with a wave dash, and how do you punish a fake challenge? You just shoot all the way to the goal as fast as you can. No soft touch, nothing that's going to get dunked on by another dribble from Fairy. That's great 50-50 though by Fairy, and he's ahead by 1 again. Alpha must have thought that he'd done enough here, but Fairy Peak, the brilliant hitbox. He's dodged the right way as well. That was huge that he decided to put an element of a backflip into that play. He'd gone forward through it. I believe he would have been in front of the ball and unable to score. Oh dear, Alpha completely out of position here. Fairy actually missed the corner boost. That was a golden opportunity for him, but he jumped off the wall too far forward. Look at that. Alpha just reads Fairy like a book, and he puts in another equalizer. Fairy hiding behind the ball with a fake challenge and then reversing into the ball. And Alpha decides to flick. He knew something was up. He figured this wasn't normal Fairy Peak fake challenge mode. He decided it would be a good idea to pop that one if he could. Now, speaking of pop, that's a brilliant save by Fairy, and another one, but he's in a terrible position here. Alpha has all the time in the world, and he's going to slow play Fairy, chips it in for 6-5. That's so smart for Alpha, because he knows Fairy's got no boost there. He knows the only way that Fairy can make a save of it is if he hits the ball into him. So he made sure to do anything but that. Just get it over him. Fairy Peak open net after a slow kickoff, and he's tied us up again. Both players refusing to be put behind in this series for too long. Every time somebody takes a lead, the other player able to close the gap. Alpha's next up on the play. He almost own goals, in fact, to snatch at that one to make sure it didn't go in. He's not caught Fairy off his line in this play. Fairy backing off all the way. Now he's got the ball for free in his defensive corner. He reads Alpha's fake challenge pretty well, but Alpha's defense holds up to the task. Another good flick by Fairy. He's piling the pressure on, but the crossbar saves Alpha. And now he's threatened a demo and forced Fairy back into his half. Another demo being threatened, in fact, by Alpha, but he's ran out of boost here. He needs to rush back if he's going to save this. I think he does have the speed, and he even fakes Fairy on one side just to take the ball into the other side. Demo's being threatened by both players. None of them connecting. Fairy Peak weaving in and out here. And he has forced Alpha to concede the possession once again. Clean flick by Fairy. Alpha puts it into his crossbar. Fairy on the rebound. Down low. Saved by Alpha, who's completely out of boost, but on the counter-attack, Fairy running all the way back into position, and he's got another save as well. Both players trading heavy hits here. Neither one of them letting anything through. Fairy Peak lunges in. That's a risky challenge to make this late in the game, but he knew Alpha wouldn't expect it. Alpha surely anticipating more of a defensive approach from Fairy at the end of the game. He might have a chance here to keep this one up, but he drops it, and into overtime we go for game 1. Fairy Peak's league play not going as according to plan so far. He would really love a win here. Alpha, of course, likewise trying to keep pressure on at the top of the table. Low 50-50 for Fairy. Goes in, and after so many flicks at the end of the game, Fairy switches it up, goes low after he's got Alpha thinking about the pre-jump, and he takes game 1 8 seconds into OT.
Overtime in Game 1 is a good start to a series for me. It's a sign of good quality games to come. Usually, a win in Game 1 is a good start to a series for Fairy Peak. He now needs to try and convert that into a dominant series.
This is the Fairy Peak everybody was expecting to see, especially after his Series 1 domination over Scrubkiller. This is a Fairy Peak that you are seeing today, the real deal. He is right back in action. And it was crucial that he turned his league play around now rather than later. He has to keep on playing like this if he's going to have a chance to get into that top half before the league comes to a conclusion. Still has to play against league leader O'Callaghan. Still has to play against Flakes, the player who broke his insane win streak in the Nihilore games earlier this year. Not an easy run ahead of Fairy Peak, but he's doing well in Game 2 so far against Alpha, and he has done well so far in this matchup. And it's that adaptation that seems to be taking its toll on Alpha, who's more of a consistent player, someone who just plays the same style all the way through a game, relying on his own mechanics and his own outplays to get the job done. But Fairy Peak always willing to adapt. He's slowing down his kickoff at times just to confuse Alpha, just to surprise him. And he saw at the end of last game as well, he was more willing than Alpha to stop shadowing and to start challenging early. Nice save by Fairy at the near post. Alpha still got him under a lot of pressure though. The turn could have been better, there's no denying that. Alpha has a lot to do here, and Fairy Peak is not letting him through easily. Looks like he will. Oh no, he's hit the bar. It should have been a goal there for Alpha. Fairy Peak hanging on to his clean sheet in Game 2 still. Boost advantage firmly in Alpha's favour. The shot is off target barely after Fairy's glancing blow into the post. This is masterful defense by Fairy. Alpha is being pushed to the limit and beyond here, trying to find a goal. This isn't where Alpha's comfortable. He would rather be the defending player in a long, extended back and forth in the midfield, just chipping away at his opponent's boost total, waiting for the misplay or the open net to present itself. But Fairy's so difficult to read here. He's throwing in enough early challenges that it's keeping Alpha guessing, and Alpha has no composure on the ball at the moment because he never knows when Fairy might just be challenging. Sharp shooting again by Fairy as he backs Alpha up into the blue goal. A quick turnaround matches Alpha for speed. This is a new look Fairy Peak this year. He is all over the field as Supersonic, and he's the one who breaks the deadlock, something that usually Alpha is able to do after these long periods of gameplay with no goals. Fairy Peak seems to have found the solution, at least for now, to catch Alpha off guard, and it's the quick plays. Alpha was getting ready for an in and out save here. He just drove into the goal expecting Fairy to make a light touch, but then he looks to his dismay and realizes Fairy has just taken a shot to the bottom corner, and there's nothing he can do about it. 4-0 Fairy Peak. Looks like he will not suffer the same problems that Scrub seems to have right now. Of course, those two are the best 1v1 players in the history of the game by a long way, in the opinions of most fans and players. Scrubkilla really struggling so far to get anything done in the Saltmine League play. Fairy making plays, making waves here and there. This is one of the bigger ones. Half the game gone, and Alpha has struggled to find his footing in this one. Another play from his own half. He bumps Fairy out of the way and allows the ball to go through. Very nice control by Alpha. Just a very light touch on the ball as he continued onwards and into Fairy Peak's car. He actually slowed down the ball ever so slightly in that nudge that he made onto it. First touch leaving a lot to be desired here for Alpha, but he has followed up well. Wave dash and a flick to make it 3-4. Alpha scores his best goal yet. Fairy Peak's giving him a great pass here. Look at that wave dash by Alpha to get underneath the ball. You've got to use that dodge if you have it. Everybody thinking there, what can Alpha do with his dodge? He's got it, but how can he make it useful for him? Well, that's how. Fairy Peak still having success on the face-offs. He's keeping Alpha guessing. This isn't where Alpha wants to be devoting so much of his attention. He would rather be thinking about how to come back, how to get the ball past Fairy in the midfield, how to dispossess Fairy when Fairy gets the ball, how to force misplays from Fairy on the goal line, which don't seem to be happening. Instead, he's having to devote so much of his attention to Fairy Peak's kickoff game, because Fairy Peak switches what he does every single time. That's a brilliant aerial shot. Fairy's ahead by 4 again after a couple of kickoff goals. And you can see that Alpha isn't really playing in a flow state right now. He's having to think about every single kickoff individually, and he's not making any of them work out. He knows it's a big problem, and he doesn't have the solution to that problem. Another possession given away by Fairy. But it was given away to him initially, and it's given away right back to him by Alpha, who must be feeling generous. So these two making a case for being teammates further down the line. I wouldn't be surprised if at one point in 3v3 they do end up on the same team. But that was an extremely generous back and forth. Alpha giving the ball to Fairy. Fairy gives it right back. Alpha gives it back again, and then Fairy gives it to Alpha for the goal. There are 3 goals now in the game. Alpha has had some success off the ceiling today, but he's not going to have any success this time. Fairy Peak with his classic pass to himself off the sidewall. Buries the long shot straight down the middle. And there it is for all of you who struggle to generate power on your shots in 1s, 2s, 3s, any game mode in Rocket League. Why not take a look at what Fairy Peak does? Passes it to himself, and then he doesn't need to do much with the follow-up touch because the ball's already moving so quickly. Fairy's shooting is so consistent right now. He puts pressure on Alpha once again. 5-goal game here. This is becoming quite disastrous for Alpha in a league which is so stacked. Everybody piled up on each other on one or two wins in the middle of the field. You need to try and get 3-2 losses in your losses and 3-0 wins in your wins. That's not what's happening to Alpha right now, but it is exactly where Fairy Peak is headed. Huge 50-50 win, giving him his 10th goal of the game. Whereas game 1 was close and won in overtime, game 2 has been one-way traffic. Fairy Peak making a return to form at the perfect time. Alpha just doesn't have the same level of ball pressure that Fairy does. He doesn't have the ability to pick his challenges as smartly as Fairy does, it would seem. Really nice jump there by Fairy to avoid the demo. It really is inside Alpha's head right now. 50-50s and mind games all going in Fairy's way. Although Alpha might have a mechanical advantage overall in this matchup, he hasn't been able to do much with it because Fairy Peak's positioning and his decision making, his ball pressure that he's able to maintain almost at all times, is just too good. Alpha allowed a goal here by Fairy, who's pre-jumped last month for this save. But it's too little too late. 9 seconds left. Alpha is going to be 2 games down against his countryman Fairy. He was hoping that today would be the day where he can finally get a series win against Fairy. If it is going to be today, he's got a lot of work to do. Fairy Peak ahead by 2 already.
Thank you Manscaped for sponsoring the EU Salt Mine. There's an offer code for you, Tourney20, which is a 20% discount for Manscaped purchases. It's looking rough for Alpha, but he's been here before. If he wants a win, it will be 5 games.
So far so good for Fairy Peak. Will he be able to keep things up? He used to be the pillar of consistency in 1s, but he hasn't been consistent so far during league play overall. But he was very consistent in his 3-0 destruction of Scrubkilla in his first series. And so far against Alpha, looking to be headed in the same direction. Alpha has to play more aggressively in this game. He's allowed Fairy Peak far too much respect, I think, and he's given Fairy Peak far too much time to make the plays that he wants to make happen. You know, credit to Fairy Peak, he's not showing any mercy here. He's not giving Alpha any second chances. Oh, that's not a bad shot by Alpha, but it has gone off target. Fairy Peak backflips into position at the near post. Fairy was covering most of the goal there. And when the 50-50s are going as well as they are for Fairy Peak, you don't blame him for just sitting back and waiting to absorb the incoming challenges. Fairy Peak picked up the boost on spawn there, so Alpha couldn't have known for sure if he had it. But he had his suspicions, and he did back off accordingly. Once again, though, Fairy Peak is just finding ways through, and he's got the opening goal in Game 3. In a similar way to many of the goals he's scored today. It's reacting to bounces instantly, no delay whatsoever. Alpha54 beaten to the punch once again. And it looks like he's going to be beaten to the ball once again as well. Fairy Peak just hands it off to him. No demo though, as he's slowed down beyond supersonic on the way up the wall. Alpha flicks the ball into an equalizer. Fairy Peak backing off a bit too far here, I think. He didn't have the usual twists and turns, fakes and feints that he so often has when he's rotating back into defense, keeping Alpha guessing. And now Alpha's going to be ahead 2-1. Fairy Peak taking the scenic route back to goal, halfway line. Looked like it might be an option for him, and in hindsight, it wasn't the best idea. 2-1 lead for Alpha. A rare lead in this series. Let's see how Fairy responds. Pre-flip into an air dribble attempt, but Alpha's able to put it wide, and Fairy Peak in an attempt to bump him away from the ball has actually sent him into it. Fairy Peak takes control in his back corner. Another delayed 50-50 by him, and Alpha backs off, gives Fairy all the time in the world. You feel like he really has to stop doing this because Fairy doesn't make mistakes in these positions. He never panics, he never rushes his play. And Alpha didn't even get the 100 boost there. The only reason for backing off would have been to get that, but just relinquish ball pressure for the perfect moment. If you're Fairy Peak. Oh dear, Alpha might have just own goal here. We sent it into the bar. Brilliant touch. Not a risky one. Fairy Peak's taking mid boost. Another bump on target for Alpha, but Fairy Peak gets underneath him. Makes the save. Alpha takes the control all the way to the blue side. Fairy Peak thinking about challenging. Even here, he is confident in his approach, and wow, Alpha somehow recovers for the save. Fairy thought he might have done enough there. Bumped Alpha into the goal. Tried to send the ball after him, but Alpha just reacted in time. That's a brilliant pre-jump by him. And he's hanging on here. He's staying in the game, staying in the series. 1 goal lead now for Alpha once again. Fairy Peak doesn't make the same mistake that he made earlier. Mid boost would have taken too long had he gone to get it. Alpha taking control in his back corner once again. This has been happening an awful lot in this game, and I don't think Fairy's enjoying it all too much. He rushes forward to apply some pressure, but Alpha responds with some speed of his own, end to end and into the orange goal, sorry. There really isn't too much time left for Fairy, given how few goals he's scored. How much time has already gone off the clock. Alpha backs off once again. You wonder, is this wise to keep giving Fairy all this space? He looks good for it this time. But Fairy Peak still has the ball. He's got the demo and the follow-up. Alpha comes off the crossbar. Fairy Peak off the bar as well on his route to the goal. And it's questionable defending once again from Alpha. First, leaving Fairy Peak alone with all the space in the world, and then trying to go for the montage save instead of staying on the ground, which is I'm sure what Fairy Peak would have done. Fairy back within 1 again. Alpha in a dangerous position here. Has to run up his back wall to avoid the demo. Ball has not bounced very kindly for him. Fairy Peak is going to apply more and more pressure, but that's a great challenge for Alpha. Open net from the wall, and that is perfectly executed. Not even a bounce as it goes on target. Alpha ahead by 2 again. Looks like it was bait to just leave the ball in the box as long as he did. Fairy Peak will need to play a consistent ending to a game here. If he concedes 1 more goal, it is not going to be, I don't think, possible to come back against an Alpha who just wastes time. Great save by Fairy at the near post. Alpha still beats into the follow-up ball, and it's an air roll shot to make it 6-3. Alpha sees the opening to the left of Fairy, and he sends the ball that direction. 1 minute and 3 seconds left. If Fairy Peak's going to get the sweep today, he needs to start scoring very soon, but Alpha is actually going to add to his lead with a kickoff goal, no less. That is interesting, because Fairy was winning almost every kickoff in game 2. It didn't look like Alpha did anything too crazy there. Just a very normal, standard approach. Fairy Peak with a response straight down the middle as well, though. Alpha's refusal to challenge, his constant backing off into goal, is not doing him too many favors this game. It's got him in trouble a lot more than it's helped him, I would say. Luckily for him, his offensive prowess has helped him out significantly. But once again, Alpha backs off into goal, and he doesn't look like he's going to save Fairy's shots in this sort of exchange. Where's the aggression? Where's the commitment from Alpha? Every single time he just runs into goal, and Fairy Peak puts it on target. This is another shot into the top corner for Fairy. Alpha is going to send that one wide, and Fairy misses the boost on his first drive by, has to go back for it. Not an easy position for Alpha though. He's done well. Not only get a save, but also to land on the corner boost. Fairy Peak inside the final 30 seconds here with another chance. That's a good first touch by Fairy, and a good second touch as well, but Alpha gets in front of him and snatches the ball away. And in doing so, he might have just done enough to win the game here. Has to just hold on for 10 more seconds, and it should be more than doable with Alpha's ball control. He runs the ball into the corner, takes away all the time that Fairy had left, and wins Game 3. There will be no sweep today in the All-France matchup.
Alpha keeps the series alive with a win in the third game. He is already familiar with drawing level from 2 down in the mine, but can he do it again? And can he do more than draw level? Or will Fairy find a way to stamp out the comeback now?
Wow, there is something I did not expect. Fairy Peak, after taking a 2-0 lead, looked set to win the series against Alpha, but after dropping just one game in the middle, he has made a car change. And it's not been good for him recently to make car changes to anything that isn't a Batmobile. Let's see if it does the job for him. Well, not early on, because Alpha's ball chasing is too strong. And Fairy Peak might be in trouble here. Alpha will be hugely positive after the last game. He got to play his style and it worked out. He does like to defend. He does like to sit in goal for the majority of the game and hit players on the counter-attack. And that's what he did last game. I don't know if it's the best idea to do against Fairy, because Fairy doesn't make enough mistakes in offense for that to give you many easy counter-attack goals. But Alpha's defense is good enough that it was viable and it worked out. He's not had to do too much defending this game. Fairy Peak backed up into his goal again. Here comes Alpha for 3-0. And he just drills it in the bottom right corner. Fairy Peak is still recovering, it looks like. And only 40 seconds into the game, he already looks like a completely changed man. Fairy Peak with his first real offensive play of the game. Shot was hitting the bar, but Alpha doesn't want to let that happen. Fairy Peak is miles off target with the open net. You know, it's not all that surprising after the failed card changes that he had against Ixo. Seeing another one just go wide. I do wonder what's going on inside Fairy Peak's head right now. Is this a personal dispute that he's trying to settle? As Alpha told him that the only reason he's winning is because of the Fennec, and now Fairy Peak's trying to prove otherwise. And not just switching car, but switching to whatever car this is. Whatever you call this hat and antenna combination. Fairy Peak doesn't have a lot of boost here and doesn't look too comfortable with his ball carrying. Alpha has all the boost, all the speed, and maximum comfort in this matchup now. Fourth goal goes in. Fairy Peak is nowhere to be seen. And he actually did have boost here. What happened to Fairy in the corner, I wonder, because he has just taken far too long to turn. He jumps in the middle of nowhere. And of course Alpha is shooting from there to take a 4-goal lead. This could go down as one of the worst card changes in history if things don't change and soon. But Fairy Peak is going to get 1 goal. And he still has time on his side, if nothing else. That might be about all he has on his side now, depending on how well Alpha continues to play. Not the best flick by the aforementioned, but Fairy Peak is going to concede possession on the clear ball. Oh wow, that is a bad bounce for Alpha, and it's a very good one for Fairy Peak. The 50-50 goes in, and now he's halfway to making a comeback. How embarrassed Alpha must feel if he loses a game to Fairy. Switching to one of the heaviest looking cars that I've ever seen. You know, Alpha could certainly be tilted from this, and for Fairy that would be a huge win, because these two talk to each other quite a lot. I'm sure Alpha would never hear the end of it. But he's held his nerve here. Stayed low against Fairy's low 50-50. I think that's very smart for Alpha, because Fairy hasn't shown much comfort dribbling, and what a bullet of a shot that is off the ceiling. Alpha at 69 kilometers an hour smashes one in off the far post. Fairy Peak did not expect the shot to be on target that soon. Kick off a win for Fairy as he collects the ball in the back corner. And that is something that you don't see talked about too often in ones, is kick-off wins from a possession standpoint, where you technically lose the kick-off territorially. That's exactly what Fairy was trying to do there. Just take control of the ball. It doesn't matter where it is, as long as he has the boost and the ball at his disposal. Alpha's speed really starting to do work, though. Fairy Peak, I think, slowing down after making this car change. Alpha, after getting a game win in Game 3, has looked more confident since. No hesitation, no time wasting, just constant pressure, several punishments to Fairy's misplays. Flick from Fairy, saved by Alpha. Fairy Peak thinking about following up here, but it wasn't a good idea. Alpha was right there, ready for the save, and of course he will put in the open net at the other end of the field. There's a little flashy show of Alpha's mechanics to enjoy. What makes this card change so mysterious to me. It looked like a good matchup for Fairy in the Fennec. It looked like he had, I think, still the better chance to win the series overall, even though Alpha had taken Game 3. Now by switching, he doesn't have the same threat to his game. His 50-50s look weaker. His dribbles don't look anywhere near as threatening. His kickoff also taking a hit by the looks of things. That's already enough to completely change the tide of a series. Alpha just staying the same all the way through. And why would you change when you just come off your only win? Oh, pull shot saved by Alpha. He's bumped Fairy into the miss, but very quick on the turnaround. Does put in his third goal of the game after a smart demo play. But it's been all Alpha in the second half of the match. Apart from that one goal that Fairy's been able to score. Not looking good going into Game 5. Unless Fairy goes back to the Fennec. Or maybe you could make an argument for the Batmobile. He has made that switch up in the past against Alpha and found success. It was a 2-0 lead in a best-of-7 series to Alpha, which Fairy then went on to win 4-2 by switching to Batmobile after game number 2. Did not go in his favor. I might actually, no, it's not bouncing in because it hasn't hit the corner. Alpha still looking threatening with the pinch shot. It's looked threatening overall in this matchup. Kickoffs significantly improved. Ball control significantly improved as well, and more than anything else, Alpha not falling for Fairy Peak's tricks like he did early in the series. Failed low 50-50s for Fairy. Failed mind games. I've just made this game number 4 look even more one-sided. We are going to go to Game 5 for the final game, the all-French matchup.
I'm going to let you in on a secret, yawny_boy_. I was pausing casting at the end there to suppress said yawns. That's not a judgment on the series though. Things are getting tense as we head into the 5th game. It's now a best-of-1.
And it is the Batmobile for Fairy, one of the scariest sights for the longest time in Rocket League 1v1. Was starting a match, loading in, and seeing Fairy Peak's Batmobile at the other side of the field. But Alpha is going to try and get revenge for all the times that Fairy beat him in the Batmobile, and also for the 2-0 defeat that Fairy handed him earlier on in this very series. Following up Alpha's only win with the disrespectful car change. Fairy, as always, able to flick high with the bat from close range. And he booms in the rebound for 1-1. And this is one of the reasons why I think this car change is the only one that makes sense for Fairy besides going back to the Fennec. He still has, I think, some of the best Batmobile dribbling in the world, and his dribbling didn't look good in this last match. It has to look good, I think, if he's going to beat Alpha. And it looks brilliant so far in the Batmobile. Perfect first touch. Just look at that spacing by Fairy. Alpha, facing away from the ball, has nothing to do. If he turns to challenge, Fairy shoots and scores. If he doesn't turn to challenge, Fairy shoots and scores. And Alpha's back level with a kickoff goal of his own. It's not going to be an easy one for Fairy by the looks of things. Alpha had some problems in game 2 with his kickoff, but they seem to be long gone now, as he starts to not just do some damage to Fairy's kickoff, but also score some kickoff goals of his own. But oh wow, Alpha trying to play more aggressively here. He doesn't pick his spot all that well. Fairy Peak was setting up a shot as Alpha turned to fake a challenge there. Maybe even turned to make a real challenge happen, because Alpha probably realizes now that all this backing off into goal is not doing him any favors against Fairy Peak. Thankfully for him, that open net miss won't come back to haunt him. He has scored in the following few seconds. Fairy Peak lunging in here, not making good contact. Only a minute, not even a minute, gone already. We've seen 6 goals in a matchup which has had its quieter starts, especially compared to this one. Alpha seems to have saved the best to last offensively. He's looking very threatening, as so is Fairy, and for once Alpha is not in his goal. He's not in position to challenge as Fairy Peak gets the counter-attack started. 4-3 lead for the GOAT. The player that everybody wants to beat. The player that everybody would have loved to beat years ago, even last year. Even at the end of 2019, the win against Fairy is still something can be looked up to. It's one of the great achievements in Rocket League, beating this guy in 1v1. The ground shots have got some added power now. Fairy Peak, every single touch so deadly compared to the last game that we just saw. Menacing as he circles around, waiting for the next opening. Their shot popped on target, but Alpha's defense for now is holding up to the task, and his boost total is not taking any damage here. Still Fairy Peak in control of the ball and the flow of the game. He slows things down now. The flick is on target, but too slow to send Alpha into his own goal, and that is a brilliant shot from Alpha to counter-attack against Fairy, who was recovering as quickly as he could here. Look at the timing from Alpha. Perfect time to arrive. Already going supersonic as the ball bounces off the sidewall. And that'll remind Fairy who he's up against. You can't just dribble the ball around and expect Alpha to give you a goal at some point. He doesn't really do that. You have to earn it against him. The entire back and forth that we saw before this, Alpha had 100 boost. He wasn't really struggling at any moment. Fairy does get back in front as Alpha greeds for that 100 boost steal. Second time this game that he's done that. He knows how important boost is in this matchup. He also needs to pressure the ball, just like he has needed to all day. Alpha brings it down at the halfway line. Into the air he goes, but Fairy Peak's quickly up for the challenge, and he's landed well. There's 2 good defenders now, it would seem. Fairy Peak trying to get a flick set up, but it doesn't land properly for him. Still looking so comfortable, so composed as he dribbles the ball back into his own half. He's not afraid of any demos from Alpha. Just look at that from Fairy. He knows Alpha is so unlikely to challenge in that position that he just doesn't flick early at all. He just waits. Alpha snuck in and got the boost steal here. Just a minute and 40 left in the game. One of Alpha's best chances in a while. Fairy has cleared it, but Alpha has cleared him, and the follow-up goes into Fairy's net. Alpha gets through with the bump. He noticed Fairy landing in front of him. He didn't even have to jump for that one. He just tagged Fairy in the drive-by. And they're all even once again. It's looking like game 1. such an interesting series. There was the game 4 in the middle that really didn't make much sense, but everything else looks every bit the classic that this can be. This matchup has given us some brilliant series in the past, and it is today as well. Alpha in front by 1. Perfect shot off the near post corner. Fairy Peak looking to respond before giving Alpha time to grab too much boost. Oh, that's unreal. Fairy Peak with a placement here. Must have caught Alpha off guard. Really, nobody knows which way he's going to shoot the ball. Just when you think he's going to go low to the bottom right corner, he puts it high to the left. And we're all tied up again. 1:14 on the clock. This is game 5. Winner of this will really help their chances of ranking up in the end of league play. Loser takes a big hit. A huge difference between a win and a loss here for both players, especially with how close the whole pack is stacked up in the middle of this league. Alpha has the boost, but he doesn't have the shot on target. Still another boost steal at the far side. Keeps the ball under control. He's thinking about a high volley here, and that's going to go over Fairy, who was off his goal line ever so slightly, but must have still fancied his chances for a save here. Just a bit too far off the line. Fairy needed to be flying into the goal there by the looks of things to stop the boomer that was Alpha's shot. Fairy might be about to send one towards Alpha's net. He's confident with his flicks after kickoffs, even with low boost. Alpha, one save. No second save though. Fairy straight away gets it past him. And what happened to Alpha here? He's tried to wave dash, and that is just so risky. He committed forward too far. Fairy Peak just popped it over him, and he might be taking a 2-goal lead here. There's some time for Fairy, but not enough time. Alpha gets in the way of it, and even maybe squeaks one in at the other end. That's a great save for Alpha, and it just goes back and forth. This match like a pendulum. Nobody can get a large lead for themselves. As soon as Fairy goes ahead, Alpha pulls it back. As soon as Alpha goes ahead, Fairy pulls it back to even, but it's Fairy with the next chance. Alpha fakes a jump and it does nothing. He gets another one, but flies down into the low shot. And that's some ballsy defense for Alpha, who needed Fairy Peak to fall for his tricks there if he was going to come out on top. And now the boost advantage might take its toll. Fairy Peak really struggling at the moment. Alpha has plenty, but Fairy Peak finds a way through, as he so often does, and he wants to keep the ball up here. He's not done, and he's found a way through. No way, Fairy Peak! Oh my goodness! It bounces on the ground at the near post. Overtime will be where game 5 is decided, just like game 1 was. Fairy Peak took that one, but Alpha has at least outlasted the distance he made in game 1. That was 8 seconds. Now we're into the teens, but Fairy Peak will win this one as well. He catches Alpha out of position. There's the leave match. Alpha54 once again cannot beat Fairy Peak. Some things never change. Players change teams, cars, and everything else in between, but Fairy Peak still wins 1v1 in Rocket League.
Alpha might be a little bit frustrated now, or maybe a little bit. What a way for the series to end. But both players can't leave victorious, and today it is Fairy Peak who closes out the final overtime and takes the win and $100. The table remains as it was when we started the day, mostly. Fairy upgrades to the 2-win club, leaving Alpha behind. However, his game scores have not been enough to overtake anyone else on the tiebreakers. Alpha continues a gentle slide into more negative numbers for series and game win-loss. He still has a few series left to try to catch up some more though. Thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring the EU Salt Mine. There's an offer code for Manscaped purchases, TOURNEY20, which will give you a 20% discount. Join us tomorrow to watch an old rivalry match up again. It's Scotland versus England. That is to say Scrub Killer versus EXO. Thanks for watching today's series. This is the EU Salt Mine. I am your host and friend, Brian.